Check one, two, three. Hey everybody, it's Michael Helms, also known as Michael the Sound Guy, and this is the Location Sound Podcast. You know, each episode we talk with location sound mixers, boom ops, and other industry pros about the various aspects of recording sound on location, whether it's for feature and independent films, TV commercials, interviews, any time where dialogue from actors is recorded. I started my career in the recording studios in New York City with some of the big artists back in the day, and later on projects for networks like HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, and the Cartoon Network. As time went by, I got out of the studio and began working in production sound. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, thanks for joining us. Okay, today we're talking with Jennelle Jordan from ProductionHUB. Welcome, Jennelle.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now, Jennelle and I first met at a Women in Film and Television conference where I was speaking on an audio panel. We discovered that we had worked with a great voiceover artist, Peter Thomas, when she was working on Forensic Files. So tell us a little bit about your experience on Forensic Files.
Sure. So mine is probably a similar story to a lot of people. I graduated college. I was looking for an internship, actually. And I needed something close to my house because at that time, people were not paying their interns. So I found a place called MedStar Television. It was right in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where I was from. And they produced a television show called Forensic Files, if you can believe that, right there in a tiny little town in Pennsylvania. So I did an internship and sort of worked my way up. I was a PA, and then I was an assistant producer, and then I became the reenactment producer. So that's what I did for 8 years. It was great. It was where I met my husband, and yes, got to work with some really fantastic, creative, wonderful people, including Peter Thomas, who was the voice of Forensic Files. He sadly passed away. I think it's 2 years ago now, but he's what made that show amazing. Just like a Robert Stack for Unsolved Mysteries, he was Forensic Files. So it was great.
I had worked with him in the studio. He had come in and done a number of voice sessions with us, and he was great at the time. You know, I'm living in New York City. He's living in, I think, Naples, Florida, and he would fly up 3 or 4 and stay 3 or 4 days in New York and do all his recording sessions, and then fly home to be with his wife. But what a gentleman. He came in the studio. I remember him. He always was dressed nice. He always had like a suit and a bow tie, and he wore the, like a fedora hat, and, always just came in. It was like almost like he was right out of the 50s and just still very professional, first class kind of guy.
Yes, absolutely. And we always worked with him remotely because he never wanted to be too far from Stella, his wife, whom he adored. He was a World War II vet. He still tooled around Naples in his vintage World War II Jeep. And we were always like, no, Peter, you should probably just stay home. Just stay home, be in the studio, just be careful. He was our guy. He was our, what made Forensic Files. So we always were very protective of him. But yeah, he had a recording studio on the beach. It was wonderful, for both him and for us. And, he was very revered and still loved, even in his passing. I think he was 97 or 98 years old when he passed. So he lived a pretty full life.
Yeah, I have great memories of working with him. So this episode's all about freelance. And, as a freelance audio person or even, video, any kind of production crew, it's hard. And a lot of people have a company either they work with or they go by word of mouth. And so it can be pretty challenging. So tell us a little bit about ProductionHUB.
Sure. So ProductionHUB has been around for a long time. It's a global network of crew and vendors that, fulfills the entire film and video and entertainment industry as a whole. So on there, you will find makeup artists, sound engineers, studios, prop houses, vendors, and individuals who want to be found for production.
Now, is ProductionHUB nationwide? Is it worldwide?
ProductionHUB is worldwide. We have profiles and vendors in the United States, in Canada, Mexico, in Europe, in Asia. I mean, I think we're on every continent except for Antarctica, maybe.
Well, that's good. And I actually am a member of Production Hub, and I have gotten a number of jobs jobs that I probably would not have otherwise had. So I am very pro Production Hub for sure.
Me too, even as a freelancer, because I've only been with Production Hub now. It'll be coming up on a year, but I used it a lot as a freelancer as well, both for myself and to find crew. So it always paid off for me. It is a subscription-based service, but for myself, I always got one job is all it takes to pay for a subscription, and I always had more than that every time I signed up.
Now, there's different tiers. Can you tell us about the tiers?
Sure. So Production Hub has a basic profile listing. That's great for individuals, folks just starting out, especially who just kind of maybe want to dip a toe. And that's $4.99 a month. So literally for less than a Happy Meal, essentially. And then it kind of scales from there. There's a $249 trial, 4 months. So that's kind of, you want to get a little bit more serious. That's a trial feature. And then our lowest featured profile is $5.99, and that's for 6 categories. And it just kind of goes up from there depending on the online marketing spend you want. And the difference between a basic and a featured is a featured profile always sort of shows up at the top of the list. So when you're searching, typing in audio engineer, featured profiles would come up first, and then basic profiles would come up below. And then we also have the ability to advertise additionally. So there's banner advertising. We have blogs, so you can do a blog sponsorship. You can do an email blast. So there are a lot of different ways to advertise with us.
Okay. My experience is I've gone on, I can search areas, I can search states, I can search cities. Are there some tips that you can, recommend when it comes to searching for a job?
Sure. I mean, there's a couple different ways. So I always recommend if you're going to be a part of a site, and especially if you're paying for something, sort of give it your all, as much time as you have to give to it anyway. So there is a situation where if you sign up, you will get leads pushed to you for free. So, our featured profile members tend to get the leads sooner. There's a little bit of a delay just because they pay a little bit more. So those leads will go out and you'll get them by email, and you can respond to the folks directly, respond to the clients directly. You can also just go out and search the front of the site, because those email alerts are only sent, within a certain geographical area. So you won't get every job alert there is, throughout the United States. It would come within like 100 or 200 mile radius to your address that you input. So if you want to, if you're willing to travel or work as a local, certainly you can search on the front end of the site. That's another way as well. So you've got email, direct leads. You've got, the ability to search on the front of the site. And then we also offer, which is something that I focus on, something called a direct connect. So a lot of the times clients come to us, larger clients, or maybe people it's, a marketing team who might not understand, production as much, and they need a little bit more of a handheld service, more of a concierge white glove service. And we have that at Production Hub now. It's our full service crewing and production management service. And what that means is, clients will say, hey, we need, a production company, or I need a sound engineer in Hawaii. I've never been there. Can you recommend some people or tell me who to use? They just don't want 30, 40 people reaching out to them. They really would like to be directed. So that's where our production management team comes in. We, we'll do the research for you and find, the most recommended qualified professionals and directly connect them. So now you're not competing with, 10 other sound engineers in your area. It's really kind of focused in, maybe there's 2 that are given to the client who chooses from there. So there's several different ways to find both gigs and jobs, contracted or full-time jobs on our site.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And as a member, you have a profile basically that you set up. And I think the important thing is that you fill it out and fill it out completely. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yes. The more information, so for better or for worse, our society is a smaller attention span these days. So whatever you have on your first, screen essentially is what people are going to see. So make sure you have your logo or a photo on there. Make sure you have a nice description of yourself, not too long so that people have to scroll. Make sure you have, we have the opportunity to list clients and gear and any awards you've won. You can upload videos or photos, include recommendations from different clients or other vendors you've worked with. So my recommendation, again, use the site to its fullest. If you have the ability to put in this information, do it. It gives clients a much more well-rounded view of who you are as an individual and as a freelancer and a member of, the production world. I, as a production manager, producer, would look at a profile of somebody and probably select somebody who has a little bit more of a complete profile than somebody who, they don't have a picture in there and they're a DP and they don't have a reel, et cetera. So that's always my recommendation, is just to be as thorough as possible.
That's good. Yeah. I filled out my profile, and then there were things missing, and I went back and added some more later. And ultimately, I guess that's increasing your percentage of being found and hired, correct?
Absolutely. Everything that's on your page is also searchable. So keywords, that you input in there, tags that you input into your profile. If you have videos, there's a video section on our site as well. So people can just kind of go in and find you a bunch of different ways. So I always recommend, and it doesn't have to be done at once. I mean, people get busy, you have a job, obviously that's more important to go out on your gig, but just always come back, even if it's, a week later, a month later, update, always be, not that I don't take them seriously, but I tend to gravitate away from somebody, that I'm looking at and it's 2018 and they've got a 2007, reel. It's like, okay, how serious are you in this industry? Yeah, just always, kind of keep up with it. Just like you would a website, anything like that. I always recommend to just be, again, as thorough as you can.
Exactly. Yeah. I really like the job notifications by text and email. You get sometimes you're working on another gig and you get a little notice that, hey, so-and-so needs a sound recordist this Saturday, and then you can just immediately respond and get the dialogue going. And that's been fabulous for me. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And my recommendation there is to get on those. So if you get a notification, just, reply as soon as possible, because again, as a client, as a producer, production manager, if that's me and I see, I've gotten 3 or 4 responses and they're all good people, I'll close my post because I don't need to hear from any more people. So, my recommendation is you get one of those leads. If you're at a position where you can at least shoot a very quick email back and say, I'm interested. So they start, looking at your profile, understanding, who you are. They go back to your very complete profile, and look. And that happens 9 times out of 10 is, within the first day or two, if it's not a long-term project, people will fulfill, what they're looking for and close their posts. So it's important to be timely on those.
Yeah, I think I've missed out on a few just because I didn't respond fast enough, and I was in the middle of working, but that's really important. If you can get on it quick, that's the way to do it.
Sure. And it's a tricky balance. Again, you're out on a gig, it's hard to do, but that's always my recommendation.
Getting paid as a freelancer sometimes can be a rocky, experience. Some people have gotten burned. Most people, I'm sure everybody's got a story where maybe things didn't quite work out, but ProductionHUB can help us get paid, correct?
That's true. So with our Direct Connect services, or, any instance where there's a transaction happening on our website, we do have the ability to have our vendors be paid by our clients through Payoneer escrow. So it's the same service that Airbnb uses. Essentially, a client puts their money in an escrow service, and then they work out with the vendor how they get paid, whether it's half down up front, and then everything else net 30, all that kind of happens transactionally away from ProductionHUB. We can facilitate, but, essentially it's a nice way to instill confidence in our vendors that they are going to get paid. The money is sitting there, so it legitimizes things a little bit more and helps the vendors to understand, okay, this client is real. This is going to happen. Their money is sitting right there. So it makes them feel a little bit better.
Great. Yeah. Do a lot of people use the service like that?
You know what? We just launched it, so I don't really have the figures on that. But yes, people are using it. I know that for sure.
Because, for example, like one of the clients I worked with, they had a 60-day net. And so that's a long time. So I was like, is there a way that we could better work this? I know a lot of freelancers like to do 50% upfront. Can you help us, I guess, evaluate or consult with us regarding our rates that we charge and any kind of conditions? And can you help us with that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we, nobody's an expert necessarily. I have people, call in a lot and say, well, how's my rate compared to other people? And it really depends. It depends on where you're at. It depends on the job. It depends on the client. There's a lot of different mitigating factors, but we can sort of talk through things and maybe even be, the go-between, between the client and the vendor. That's what we do a lot with our direct connect service. The ultimate goal is to have our profile members and our vendors on our site win and get work and make money. So yes, the long answer to your question is yes, we can assist with that.
Does Production Hub help with full-time positions, or is it just primarily freelance?
We really have a nice steady flow of people who understand the site and know that they can very quickly be connected with vendors for freelance gigs. But we do also have a job board that has full-time and contracted jobs. So long-term, longer than 2 or 3 months, or full-time. So there's 2 different avenues for exploring that on the front of the site as well. So if you're looking for, something a little bit more permanent, you could certainly look, on our job board as well. Same search fields, you search in your particular field of expertise, you should search in the area you're looking for, just like you would a gig. We also have that with jobs as well.
Okay. You've been in the industry for a long time. How have you seen things change? Freelance-wise, production-wise?
That's a good question. I mean, certainly with the advancement of technology, I rarely get a request for film, for any sort of film camera or, any crewing I do, any equipment finding I do. I very rarely get asked for film cameras or, a loader, that kind of a thing. So that's different. And then also, with this, and on the same token, people expect, what's the old adage, faster, better, cheaper, and pick 2. It's usually faster and cheaper, which is unfortunate. I think it's this day and age. People want things quickly, and they want quality, but, unfortunately, I think sometimes they're willing to sacrifice it for the bottom line. So it's been a challenge for, seasoned veterans, I would say, seasoned vendors, to be able to maintain the level of quality that they expect from themselves and also still win bids because, there's a lot of kids out here that are willing to shoot on their iPhone and phones look pretty good. So, but it's not the same, you know what I mean? And if you're really, looking to light something well and to have a team and, writing and directing and all of that stuff, I mean, it is an art form. It is, and it shouldn't fall by the wayside, I don't think, because, something is cheaper and easier.
I agree. Now, when it comes to somebody just starting out, trying to get into the business, what would you recommend them do?
I recommend to take every job that you can within reason. Now, I know I've worked with and I have employed folks who are right out of college and they expect to be Steven Soderbergh or they expect to be, Ron Howard or Steven Spielberg. And that's great. And that can happen. I'm definitely not raining on your parade. But at the same time, if somebody wants to hire you as a PA and they ask you to get coffee, you do that in the best possible way that you can. A good attitude and a willing attitude gets you far in this business. My executive producer on Forensic Files told me the best story. He said, I graduated, I expected to do big things. I was asked to get coffee. And you know what? I went out and I got coffee the absolute best way that I knew how. I got varieties, I got decaf, I got all this different stuff because of course, the executives don't tell you necessarily what they want if they're right in the middle of things. And he very quickly rose through the ranks. And that was something that people didn't forget. So it's, just learn as much as you can, be as diverse as you can, be a PA, learn how to wrap a cable, and look at some of the services like a ProductionHUB. They, go to networking events. The basic profile on ProductionHUB, like I said, it's cheaper than a meal, a fast food meal. So it's a way to at least get your foot wet, start understanding the business, go to, join, like Women in Film is really great for a networking opportunity. There's lots of different types of organizations like that. So I always just say, be as out there, as you possibly can, get to know people, learn from them, be willing to learn. If you can have a website, have a website. If it makes sense for you to have one in the position that you are in the industry, for a grip, it doesn't make as much sense as it would for a DP. But if you can definitely have one, make it up to date. Have, a ProductionHUB type profile so you can job search, and you have to be willing to market yourself. And I understand that, finding jobs is the most important thing. I was freelance for a while too, and my husband still is. So I get the feast or famine and, searching and everything, but marketing yourself is very important. And that's what helps get you jobs. Updating reels, uploading commercials to either your ProductionHUB profile or a Vimeo page. Facebook networking, as for better or for worse. I just joined Facebook not that long ago. So, I swore once my mom was on it, I was never going to join. But it is a great networking opportunity, if only to have you relevant. So the people that you're working with are seeing what you're doing. They're seeing even your personal posts. It helps to keep your name out there and keep people knowing that you're there, you're available, this is what you're doing. It's all about making yourself visible.
Great advice. Great advice. I actually was talking with Callie Williams, who is a freelance location sound recordist out in California, and she's big on Instagram, and she actually has gotten jobs, by posting on Instagram. Yes, there's a ton of social media, sites to be a part of, and I always say, pick the one that you like the best, and just, make sure you post your jobs, you post what you're doing, you show your gear. I mean, it's interesting, but people love to see that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's not Facebook, if it's Instagram, I mean, I would also caution that people will see everything that you do if you're friends with them. So, you have to be responsible with it too. If you're using it for a professional platform, I mean, certainly you can have a personal page where it's just your friends and you can post pictures of you, drinking and have a great time. And not that you can't on your professional, but just keep in mind that people who are potentially going to hire you might also see those things. And that's, those are jobs in companies now, people looking at, potential hires, social media pages. So again, for better or for worse, it can get you jobs, but it can also get you fired. So, just to be mindful of that as well.
Well, I discovered too, going back to networking, it's so important. People always tell you, oh, you got to network. And you're like, yeah. And actually, when I met you at the Women in Film and Television, just that conference we did, I had met Alexa Sheehan at doing a 48-hour film festival. I was one of the judges. Mm-hmm. I connected with her, and then she was a part of Women in Film and Television, and then she invited me to be a part of the audio panel. So that right there just shows you, just the power of networking.
Absolutely. And Alexa is one of my favorite people. So that's wonderful. And just the little things, have a business card, even if it's just the easiest thing you put together, that you sent to Vistaprint for $49 with a coupon, it helps, every little bit helps. It's all about the marketing. And that's what, we always kind of tell people on ProductionHUB. It's just a way for you to, to see people and to be seen.
That is true. That is great. Well, this has been very good information about ProductionHUB, and I just want to say thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thanks for having me. It was great.
So if people wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way?
You can reach out to me at my email address, which is jordan@productionhub.com.
Fantastic. Okay, I want to say thanks again to Jennelle Jordan for being on the show today. And a big thanks to all of our listeners out there. If you'd like us to discuss a particular topic, please send us an email at locationsoundpodcast@gmail.com. We would love for you to subscribe and leave us a comment. We're available on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, remember, sound is half the picture.